Hi, I'm Brandon, and I want to welcome you to our weekly TV talks.
Hi, and I'm Mom. Thank you for joining us here today. We have a great TV show we're going to talk about today, aren't we, Brandon?
Yeah, with Shara and Mom, what show are we speaking about today?
Today we're talking about Roseanne, the original.
Yeah, so specifically, we're speaking about the original premiere episode, the pilot titled Life and Stuff, written by Matt Williams. And yeah, I mean, I'm excited to dive right into it.
Yep, so am I, Brandon. Brandon. So let me get started. I will tell the audience just a little bit about this particular episode, well, about the series itself, so they have some sort of context. First of all, the series Roseanne is about a working class family who live in Illinois. They are the parents of three different children. Dan and Roseanne are the parents, and then their children are Darlene and Becky, who are their two daughters, and then their son DJ. We do know from the beginning that Dan is a contractor and that Roseanne initially works at Wellman Plastics. And then the last part of it is that Roseanne does have a sister named Jackie, and Jackie does play an integral part of this particular series.
Yeah, and in this series, ran for a collective total of 10 seasons, nine consecutive ones, 1988 to 97, and then again in 2018.
Yes, it does. And in this particular episode, we find that one of the things I know that you and I talk about, Brandon, is there a culminating event that kind of starts this particular series? In this case, I think you kind of agree with me, Brandon, that there was not a culminating event. We talked a little bit about this. It really just starts right at the beginning. It starts with Dan and Roseanne, who are parents to these three kids, and Darlene finding out that she didn't tell her mother until the last minute that she had a note from her teacher and that Roseanne needed to meet with this particular teacher today at a certain time period. Since Roseanne did not know, she had to make some. She had to ask her boss in order to take off early in order to see this particular teacher. And when Roseanne does get there, the teacher says that Darlene barks in class. That's basically what it entailed too. The teacher tried to psychoanalyze Roseanne, but she wouldn't go for it. Roseanne went home, spoke to her daughter about it, and her daughter says, "Well, yes, mom, on board. I bark in class," and so that's what it really came down to. And Roseanne told her to stop. In the midst of all that, both Roseanne and Dan are talking about the amount of housework and things like that each should be doing in the house, and Roseanne thinks she does everything, and Dan disagrees. But in the middle of all of that, they come together at the end.
Yeah, and I think an overall theme of this too is that whereas of course Roseanne is a working class mom, and the whole family of course is working class as well, is that while Dan's trying to find work, Roseanne has work, but yet she still has to put in almost all the responsibility. And part of the theme of this episode is that she wants Dan to accept more household responsibilities as well.
Yes, you're perfectly right, Brandon. Yes, that is one of the themes is that Roseanne wants Dan to participate more so in the household duties and raising the children.
Yeah, and and I think this is just such an interesting start for the series. Like I said, very long running and in its own right. And Mom, yeah, having seen, I believe you've seen the majority of, if not all of the series, and so how would you say that this episode sort of starts off the series?
Well, I think it does a good job of starting off the series because it does. I mean, the whole theme, as you've talked about, is there. It goes in and out throughout the series and even into the Connors themselves now. It just kind of stays there. But I think the overall thing about their life is that they were all about their children and wanting the best for their children, even though they go a little wayward a little bit. And for those of y'all who have seen the for the rest of the series, but they do come back and they all come back together as one as a family.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say too that even in the part at the towards the end of the episode where Roseanne and Dan were just getting into just a serious disagreement about responsibilities and everything, I mean, their argument cut right off when they realized that their daughter needed them, and so I think it sort of shows that yeah, despite it all, they stick together.
Yes, it sure does. It sure does. And Brand, when I watched this particular episode, I kind of looked for some things that, like what I learned from the series and things that kind of stood out that that I thought was important to move forward. And one of the things that I've discovered, of course, is that they've been married for 15 years. I think that's important to know. And I saw that, and of course, the series takes place, I said Illinois, but it takes place in Lanford, I'm sorry, Illinois, which is a fictional town. People have tried to figure out where it is. They've actually given them an address of 714 Delaware Street. And if you look that up, that kind of pops right up as Dan and Roseanne's house. We learn a little bit about the children in this just very quick episode. We learn that Becky seems to be studious. She's involved with school because she is helping out with the camp food drive at the beginning. Because the whole episode really centers around Darlene's world per se. We know that she's not so studious and that Roseanne has to miss work to visit with her teacher. Um, so we know that Darlene might need a little bit of help in school, or just she might be struggling a little bit, but not in struggle in the sense that she's not smart, struggle in the sense that she just doesn't want to do her homework. DJ's just a younger, annoying little brother. Um, we know that they introduced Wellman Plastics, which is where Roseanne works, and they spent so much time there. It makes you think that Wellman Plastics will be part of this particular series for a little bit anyway, just because they spend so much time in this first episode, and that's where we kind of meet Jackie too. And we also meet a friend named Crystal who is there at the beginning, and I think she's in the theme song at the beginning at that time too. And so and that is, oh, and one last thing that kind of stood out to me, which I find interesting because it kind of goes into the Connors today with Jackie. Jackie's being very philosophical at that time period. And I found that entertaining that she was being philosophical back then and she is now philosophical now in the Connors. So that part did not change at all. Did you notice anything else, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I completely agree with what you were saying there too. And yeah, in this episode, of course, while we're introduced to the free children, is yeah, DJ actually has a different actor in this one. So for the rest of the series and for the sequel series, he is portrayed by Michael Fishman, but in this case, it's actually by a different actor, Sal Barone. And so, and so, even with the different actor, we don't really see a lot of DJ in this episode, and I don't think he was even named.
Yeah, we found that interesting that in this particular episode, what we noticed. So, as we said in previous episodes that we've talked about, they mentioned the characters' names multiple times, so you know who they are. And this particular episode, besides Dan and Roseanne, the kids' names you barely hear them, and so you do have to listen closely to know what the name of the child. Darlene would probably be the one that you would know because they mention her name nonstop. But Becky and DJ, it's really I don't even like you said I don't even know if they said DJ's name. I know they said Becky's a couple times.
Yeah, they did say Becky's name a few times, especially when they were calling her towards the beginning of the episode. But but yeah, so I just found that interesting, and yeah, and this is, I believe, a actual pilot episode, and so the series was originally going to be titled "Life and Stuff" before they decided to name it Roseanne, and so as a little interesting tidbit is that, of course, this series is created in this episode written by Matt Williams, and the series is produced by Carsey-Werner Productions that create a different show we spoke about on our previous channel, A Different World. But apparently, Matt Williams was also one of the writers of the pilot for A Different World.
Oh wow, I know we're finding a lot of connections between our TV series, aren't we, Brandon?
Yeah, we certainly are, and so it's interesting to see, that connection right there. And so yes, I just definitely found that interesting, and I'm actually currently reading his book. But yeah, so it's interesting to see, how this series started off, and yeah, how would you say that the series, yeah, in its present day form, as the Connors relates back to this episode?
Oh, how does it relate back to the episode? I think just knowing that Dan is just there for his children, children at this point, grandchildren too. That that part it never ceases. He's got this unconditional love for his family. So so that part and his life is truly ruled by his children and their decisions that they make, and so it kind of reflects that in some of the decisions that he makes in the Connors now.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And so it's interesting to see everyone's, foundation here. But something I found like the most intriguing out of this episode, which shows a lot of interesting stuff. But at the end of this episode, we see, the in the tag scene that Dan is showing off the boat he is building in the garage. And where are they taking this boat to?
That's a good question, Brandon. I know you and I talked about that. I'm not sure where they're taking this boat to. I had to think of like Illinois, where's their water? And I know that those who are watching, you're going to tell me where the water is, but but I don't envision boat season out in Langford, Illinois. And I know it's a fictional town, but I don't. When I think about Illinois, I don't think about boats.
Yeah, and so it's definitely interesting, especially considering it's I mean, a common theme throughout the episode, and then we did end up watching a few episodes afterwards, and the boat still continues. So I don't know, maybe it's a vital part of season one. I guess we'd have to keep watching again to find out.
Yep, I guess we'll have to keep watching them, Brandon. I showed you several episodes after we watched the first one, but yes, maybe we'll have to see where this boat ends. I don't know. They don't mention the boat on the Connors, or at least I don't think they have.
Yeah, and I will note too that, of course, yeah, we saw this on the Peacock streaming service, but even though this is, of course, I guess the current print of this is that I wonder if there had been anything changed from the original airing to this to now, because we did notice like a few differences in terms of like, crediting and even font colors, and how they seem a little consistent. So it kind of makes me wonder, what's changed.
Yeah, that is a good question. It's a good question. We'd have to catch that original to find out. And I can't even recall if I own the original or not, because I know I own quite a few originals from the DVDs.
Yeah, but Mo, is there anything else that you want to discuss for this? Oh, and what are your thoughts about the theme song?
Well, the theme song's kind of iconic. I mean, of course, is for the most part is instrumental, and but you do know it. If you hear the Roseanne theme song, they have kept it the same for the last many, many years it's been on. So it does. When I hear it, I do kind of sit down and look and say, which episode is it?
Yeah, definitely. It truly is just an iconic theme song for an iconic show. And yeah, but I hope that, those tuning in, I hope that you continue to watch with us, every week as we go through these episodes.
Yes, and let us know what other premieres you want us to look at. Please say so in the comments. We know we do a lot of premieres and or pilot episodes, and that's something that we just enjoy doing.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't wait for us to continue this trend as we head into the next week as well.
Oh, same here. I hope everyone has a great weekend.
And we'll see you next time.
All right, bye bye.